What's up, everybody? I'm Parlay Hunter from BroBro.com, here with a very special guest today, Phil Dunlap from White Rhino MMA and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. How you doing, Phil?
I'm doing great. For those that don't know me, I'm a lifelong martial artist. And I grew up doing the Burmese martial arts. I kickboxed for years in Thailand, Burma, Laos, Cambodia, China, Japan. I've been all over the world kickboxing, and I'm also in the finance business, and I've done mixed martial arts, grappling, and I'm a hardcore health and fitness nut.
That's great. So I have a few questions, related to MMA. What age did you start getting into mixed martial arts?
Well, I grew up in the Burmese arts, and the Burmese arts is a rare martial art, and they don't have a lot of the trappings that, let's say, Japanese and Korean martial arts, or what the American public, views as martial arts. In other words, there was no belt system, there was none of that, and it was striking and grappling and weapons work. And the idea was, I started training as a little kid because my grandfather had lived in Burma for years prior to and during World War II. And my grandmother was actually Kashin, which is a northern Burmese tribe. So it's kind of like, it was one of those things that was in the family. So I started training as a little kid, and I took my first professional fight at 15 years old. I fought almost exclusively in kickboxing in the bond, which is a weird form of Burmese grappling, where it's takedowns, submissions, and open palm strikes, like the old school pancrase rules in Japan. And the idea was, I did that from 15 to 26, broke my neck, took 10 years off from competitively fighting. I started teaching at 29. And then I took 10 years off from competitively fighting before I got medical clearance to fight again. Then I came back at 37 and fought from 37 to almost 44 in basically kickboxing, grappling, and mixed martial arts. And then I ended up retiring again because, it's kind of like, how do I say this? I joke I've had 3 careers. My first career, I was young. I was a typical young guy. I want to be the baddest man on the world. How dare this guy accept a fight with me? Yeah, I wanted to wreck people, and I wanted to be all those things that don't really exist. Okay, and it's funny how I always say the spirit of youth is kind of wasted on the young. And then when I came back, I was kind of doing it for the wrong reasons. I was doing it to prove the doctors wrong. I was doing it, almost for outward influences. And then what happened is I was running a school in New York. I had actually semi-retired from my career in government contracting. And then what happened is I got cancer. I went through a bad divorce, got cancer, and I was supposed to die. And we ended up moving to Vegas because a company made me an offer in the finance business. They wanted a government subject matter expert. They made me an offer. They moved me out there. They took great care of me. And the key in that was they gave me a big insurance policy. So if I died, my family was taken care of. And then what happened is I got my health back. And at 53, I started to train and teach again. And then the bug hit me. I realized how much I realized that as we age, we tend not to do the things we love anymore. Okay, and I love competing. I love that moment. Okay, I love water skiing, so I started water skiing again. I hadn't water skied in 20 years, so I started water skiing. I started to do all the things I used to do, and I started competing in grappling again. I was doing a lot of tournaments, a lot of pro events, and since turning 53, I'm 59 now. I've had over 250 matches. So it's kind of like I'm one of those guys. I just love to do it. In fact, I have a pro match in Las Vegas on May 7th. So the idea is, I do pro shows, I do big tournaments and stuff like that, and I do it not to win and lose. Basically, I do it because I love it. Of course, I don't even play checkers to lose. Okay, I want to win, but at this stage of my life, it's more about the doing. I walk out there and I feel like every time I compete, I say screw you to Father Time, and I say fuck you to cancer. Okay, so it's like, for me, that's the real victory. And it's just, I love that moment when I'm looking across from the other guy and the ref says, are you ready? Are you ready? And then we lock up. I'm addicted to that moment. Not the winning, not the losing. It's that moment that's so great. And the idea is it's kind of like I've gotten to compete in the major combat sports. I won a stadium championship in Thailand, 3 world championships in Burma. I've won regional MMA titles, and I've won championships in grappling and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So it's just I just love to compete. It's a lot of fun.
How do you manage, like, how do you discipline yourself? Because I mean, obviously you're in good age, I mean, you're in good shape, and you've been through so much. I mean, like, how do you stay disciplined with your diet and your physical?
My longevity is based on compulsiveness. Okay, between you and I wasn't always a nice guy. Remember, I'm going back and forth to Southeast Asia. I was selling drugs. I was doing bad things while I was fighting. Okay, in other words, there was a lot of money to be made, and I was living the life. Okay, so it's kind of like I as I got older, I started to change. I gave up drugs and alcohol. I got away from bad decisions in my probably around 22, 23. I basically stopped being involved in drugs. Okay, because I realized it was a dead end. It was either going to be prison or death. Okay, and I decided that that's not, and it's also not who I wanted to be. And I always tell people, one of the great things about being human is we have the power to change if we want to. Okay, no matter how fucked up you are at 22, you're going to be a different guy at 32. I'm a different guy at 59 than I was at 49. And it's kind of like I always tell people, you go through things like the broken neck. It made me stronger. The cancer actually made me a better person. I like to think I was a really good I evolved into a good person in my late 30s. I was helping others out. I was teaching a lot of guys for free and stuff like that. But what happens is you suddenly get to this point where somebody tells you you're going to be dead in 6 months. And I still remember sitting in a doctor's parking lot thinking to myself, how am I going to tell everybody that this is it? And then the world closes in on you. What you start to think about is the things that really matter: your family, your memories, and the lives you impact. And it was kind of funny. After getting better, I do everything for my family. Then, with memories, I'm out there creating memories every chance I get. Then the last thing is impacting others. Well, in Vegas, I was teaching for free for years. Okay, because I felt that combat sports was a way to help people. In other words, if you take what you learn in training and apply it to the rest of your life, okay, it's going to give you the fabric to succeed. And when I get back to the idea of compulsive, I'm one of those people. I do nothing halfway. My biggest problem when I was younger is I overtrained. I am a lifelong vegan. I grew up a vegan. And what's funny is it actually handcuffed me. I always wanted to be a bigger guy. And it handcuffed me for years because I ate mostly fruit, like pounds and pounds of fruit. And what was funny is I was never heavier than about 175 pounds. Okay, and then what happens is after the cancer, the treatment left me like a giant water balloon. I was about 190 pounds. And I had to change my diet because my body doesn't produce enough insulin to break down all that fruit. So I switched over to a nut-based diet, and my body just grew. Okay, it got to the point where at one point I had lifted myself. I started lifting a lot too, and I'd gotten up to 230 pounds. Right now I'm walking around about 210, and this is a much more comfortable weight. 230 pounds is just too much muscle to carry and compete, but I had fallen in love with being a big guy. Mm-hmm. When you're skinny your whole life, it's kind of like, oh, this is cool. But it's one of those things that like people ask me about my diet. Am I vegan for ethical reasons? No, when the zombie apocalypse comes, I'm eating human. Okay, in other words, it's just something I feel better, and I do credit it with, like, I've got a lot of joint injuries, like I need shoulder replacement, knee reconstruction, but I feel the vegan diet really helps me with swelling and pain management, and the idea is I just feel better this way. And because I always said that I never really developed a taste for the things everybody else loves, like I don't like meat. Okay, the couple times I've had it, it just doesn't sit well in my stomach. As a kid, I never liked ice cream. I never liked cake. I never liked candy. So it's not for me, it's not like, you sit there and you think to yourself, oh, if I became vegan, it would be like a death sentence. No, in other words, for me, it's like my idea of like a treat is to eat a watermelon.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's, it's like, it's different for me. And like with training, my biggest issue was always overtraining. Like and that's one of the things I've had to learn as I got older. In your 20s, you can beat the hell out of your body and it keeps responding. In your 30s, not as much. In your 50s, you have to learn to listen to your body. When your body's dead, time to take a day off.
Mhm. Wow.
That's been my biggest adjustment to aging, actually.
That, the nut-based diet from being a vegan, that's amazing. I didn't eat, like, I wasn't really, I've looked up, vegan and like the diets and trying to look up different ways. I know that there's a lot of different ways to get in that protein, but I'm not a vegan, but I've always kind of thought, man, I would love to try it. You know what I mean? Just to,
Well, I also take a protein supplement that's custom made. It's hemp, pea, and rice protein. It has a great amino acid profile. I take a multivitamin to make sure I get everything I need, and I eat mostly nuts. And sometimes, like, I have brown rice or something like that. My eating habits are just bizarre. And like if I go out to dinner with customers, I'll have five baked potatoes and nothing else. It always becomes the conversation, and it's kind of like, what's funny is because I'm in the finance business. Customers, the first thing they do is they usually do their due diligence and research. So the first question in the business meeting is also, did you find? And then basically the whole business meeting becomes my diet, my career, training, answering everybody's questions about diet and nutrition. And people end up doing business with me. I always say I'm not that guy. I'm that guy you'll never forget.
yeah.
You may not like me, but you won't forget me.
Yeah. Well, so when it comes, I mean, is there any actually, is there any cross, do you cross any reference your fighting and your finance career and then your fighting career? Are there any things that have like cross paths that you've learned through fighting that help you with the finance career?
Well, between you and I'm usually 100% there in anything I do. Okay, and I think part of that's through training, because I always tell people, the 2 hours like I'm teaching at night. When I go there, problems at work, problems at home, everything disappears. Okay, it's the same for me with work. I apply the things I've learned on the mat to my work life. In other words, to engage, to focus. That obstacles aren't your enemy. They're an opportunity to solve problems. Like between you and I, how do I phrase it? We finance government contracts. Okay, which basically means that we put up the money, we retain ownership to the product until the government pays. So the idea is, what happened is when COVID came around, there was a whole new business model out there, because so many of these places, like if you had to buy masks from 3M, you had to buy, let's say you needed 10 million masks from 3M, and there weren't a lot of masks on the floor. So you had to contact 3M about manufacturing them. Then you had to put up an escrow account. You had to put the money in escrow. And let's say the masks were $250 each. 10 million is 25 million. Okay, so you got to put up 25 million in cash while they manufacture it. Then you have to wait 45 days till the government pays it after it's delivered. Okay, not a lot of companies have that type of money. So our business went crazy. And for the first year and a half of COVID, I was working almost 24/7, 365. Everything else suffered. And that's one of the things that I learned through competition is the bigger the obstacle, the greater the reward. If you can figure out a way to solve the problems involved in the obstacles, opportunity opens up. And I've always been fortunate in having that mind that looks at things not as a problem. Find a solution to a problem, and you're set.
Do you meditate?
That's between you and I. That's one of my issues. I have a problem. I do meditate, but I have a lot of problems with, as I always say, voices in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Too much noise in my head sometimes.
Mhm.
I can meditate like after I teach. I can't like wake up in the morning and meditate because my brain is already working on problems.
Mhm, mhm. I was. It's just because like like you said, your mind is always like got. You have to clear your mind before you get into work or you start coaching and whatnot. That's why I thought maybe you meditated just because your mind control. I
For
mean,
me, it's almost like a light switch.
mm,
Okay. And like one of my students and I have various light switches. I have class light switch and he's seen me work. I work light switch and then he's seen me get angry. And I have angry light switch.
mm,
And like, in other words, like he said, you can almost see the change in personality, the change in my demeanor, and even a change in the look in my eyes.
mm,
So it's kind of like, and like, to be honest with you, I know you said you discussed mental health on this program. Mental issues run in my family, and I've been touched. I've been diagnosed as more things over the course of time, but I've also struggled with chronic depression, bipolar disorder. My mother was schizophrenic. There's a lot of issues. So a lot of, I always say martial arts gave me the tools to overcome, mental health issues.
wow.
And I've always shared the issues because it's like people look at you if you're a fighter. Okay. And it's kind of like I always get a kick out of people coming to a gym and what they expect is a room full of tatted up thugs, a bunch of tough guys. Nothing could be further from the truth. Okay. And I always try to tell people a lot of times that, looking at me and me saying, hey, listen, I've struggled with this. Okay. I still fight the struggle on a daily basis. Okay. It helps other people reach out to me for help.
Mm,
I've gotten more people to take medication. Okay. Because like once they realize I struggle, then they're open about talking about
mm. How young do you think it's safe for a child to get into mixed martial arts?
it. Depends on what you mean by get into.
Mhm.
I'll tell you, my stepson got into it. And, like I get a lot of people that want their kid to train at 5 years old. Okay. As long as you make it fun, 5 years old is cool. Okay. But not to fight,
Mhm.
just to go out there and have fun. Maybe do a couple grappling competitions as a kid. I would wait until the teenage years before letting them compete in kickboxing.
Mhm.
I would wait until most states make you wait until they're 18
Mhm.
for mixed martial arts, which I kind of agree with. Why be in a rush?
Yeah.
Okay, do kickboxing because you got the shin pads, you got the heavier gloves, you got headgear. Okay, do grappling. You're working both components. Train for mixed martial arts, but the two things that bother me about I suffer from CTE. I've had 119 pro fights. A lot of them were Burmese boxing. And listen, you got to look at something. My nickname was the White Rhino.
Mhm.
Okay, here you have a guy that in Burmese boxing, your whole body is a weapon. You can knee, you can elbow. Well, I decided my best weapon was my head.
Mhm.
I used headbutts. I had 28 knockouts by headbutt. Okay, and being white, using my head, White Rhino, natural evolution. Okay, so the idea was I've suffered the consequences of a lot of blows to the head. And I'm not even sure it was the fighting, it was the training.
Mm.
Okay, like I always tell people, do I think I could get in the cage and fight? Yeah. Do I think I could make it through an 8 to 12 week training camp? Hell no, too much sparring.
Mm. Interesting.
Okay, and like between you and I, like I consider myself, most people think I'm in sick shape at 59 years old. But I consider myself in what I call shits and giggles shape. Okay, yes, I can go out and do grappling competitions, grappling tournaments, but I'm about 16 weeks of hard training before being in actual fighting shape.
Mhm.
You see, I don't view grappling as fighting. Fighting is when you're getting punched in the head, the stakes are high. Grappling, I view as very aggressive cutting. Okay, we're going to roll around on the ground, and one of us at some point is going to say, hey, wow, that's too much lugging for me. Okay, so it's not the same. Yes, it is very physical. You can get your arm broken, you get choked unconscious, whatever. But it's still, just to me, it's not the same. It's not the same feel, not the same context.
Mhm. Just before we have to wrap up and stuff, I just wanted to talk a little bit about like some of your favorite fighters. Do you have some favorite fighters, like inspirations or people that you watch today and say, "Gosh, like I think they're some of the greatest."
Well, some of my early favorite fighters is I love Sakuraba.
Mhm.
Okay, if you follow mixed martial arts, he fought a lot in Pride. I used to love Igor Vovich. He was a good striker in the early days of mixed martial arts. I used to love Marco Huas. He was like, to me, he was the first complete MMA fighter. And in modern fighters, like, I love Khabib.
Mm.
I love that grinding pressure, make the other guy suffer style. I'm just one of those guys. I'm not a Conor McGregor guy. I don't like the loud, showy. I'm more the old school guy. Like I used to love the build up for guys like Randy Couture and Chuck Liddell when they fought. Okay, they asked Chuck, so what do you think of this fight? Well, Randy's a great opponent. He's probably my toughest opponent ever, but I'm going to knock him out. Okay, they asked Randy. Chuck's a tough opponent. He's really rough. He's going to be a tough fight, but I'm going to finish him. Okay, to me, that's how you hype a fight. You don't call somebody's wife names, say you're going to bang her after them. That's just nonsense.
Yeah.
And I got to be honest with you. It's like I always got a kick out of like watching the result of Khabib and Conor. Okay, some people you can't get in their head. Like Conor likes to get in your head. You can't get in Khabib's head. Okay, he signed to fight with you. Yap all you want. We're gonna get like those. It's like when what's his name, Masvidal attacked Colby Covington. Dude, you just had 5 rounds to kill him. If you really wanted to hurt him, you probably should have done it then. Walking up in a restaurant and sucker punching him is just stupid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is funny how do you feel like some of the fighting theatrics has elevated over the last 20 years with the UFC and
Honestly, I think it has. And listen, I can't go wrong. I can't fault the fighter themselves. Okay, like the Paul brothers, I gotta give them credit. They're making bank. Okay, I can't fault them on that. My thing is, I can't understand why somebody's willing to pay to watch it.
mm,
How many hours do you work to make that $70 you're paying for the pay-per-view?
mhm.
Okay, for a fight that's like, it's pointless, but hey, people want it, they want it. Okay, where it really bothers me is I see so many of the young kids getting caught up in it. Okay, you got to remember, look at the Paul brothers. They're obviously training hard. Okay, look at Conor. Conor was training hard, and Conor didn't start to become a huge mouth. He was already good when he did that. Some of these kids aren't training and they're out on the internet shit talking constantly.
Mhm.
Okay, and that doesn't make sense to me.
Mhm.
Okay, it was between you and I, like Muhammad Ali talked smack and backed it up. He was the man.
Mhm.
And Conor McGregor is like 0-5 in his last fights.
Mhm.
As far as I'm concerned, you talk shit if you don't back it up,
Mhm.
you're an a-hole.
Yeah, it doesn't have the same effect as it did.
Right? Like if I tell my opponent I'm going to pimp him out,
Mhm.
I better win. Otherwise, I'm a fool.
Mhm. Yeah. I definitely agree. Do you have to teach your students as a coach? Do you have to teach your students that about the respect part of fighting?
I'm really weird in that. Remember, I don't view as a coach, and I know a lot of guys do. They view that they have some say in their guys' lives.
Mhm.
When you're not in the classroom, the only say I have is how you represent me and how you represent the team. If you want to cross train, cool. And I remember I was teaching for free.
Mhm.
Okay, but if you show your ass at an event, like if you lose and you act like a 12-year-old, we're gonna have problems when we get back to the gym. You embarrass me, you embarrass the school. I threw a guy out of the school for his public behavior, and then we ended up on the Dr. Phil show, and it just turned into a fiasco. And I got
Wow,
to be
really?
honest with you, one of my few regrets in coaching was taking him on in the first place. Then, when it turned ugly after the Dr. Phil show, going back and forth with him. It was pointless.
Mhm.
Okay. In other words, I realized that the people that just want internet hype,
Mm.
engaging them is the worst thing you can do.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay. It's kind of like the old saying that as soon as I start talking to somebody, like, remember, I'm in the finance business. I'm talking with some guy on the internet who knows how to solve all the world's financial problems.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, he can't hold a job and can't balance a checkbook. Okay, yet he's an economics expert who's going to solve all the world's economic problems. I'm sorry, it's like arguing law with a lawyer. Yes, your Google search does not equal a law degree. I'm sorry, it's just the way life works. But it's kind of like so many kids nowadays, they think there's a better way. Okay, it's kind of like an 0-2 fighter talking trash. It's a joke. A 2-0 fighter talking trash is still pretty silly. Get to 7-0, you want to open your mouth. Okay, maybe I'll start to listen to you.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay, and that's talking pros. If
Mhm.
you're an amateur and you're talking shit, you got no business talking shit.
I like that. Well, before I'm gonna wrap this up, I just want to say thank you so much for coming here and talking and shedding your experience and your light on our listeners. And I wish you the absolute best in life and the rest of your career.
Thanks, I appreciate it. And let people know if they have any questions related to the sport, fitness, and diet and everything. Not that I claim to be a nutrition, not that I claim to be an expert on strength and conditioning. I know a little bit about fighting, but if people are thinking of going vegan, contact me. I'll tell you not to. Okay, first of all, it's expensive and it's difficult. Okay, but if you insist and you want a little bit of advice, don't hesitate to look me up and reach out. People contact me all the time, and like I enjoy sharing. I enjoy sharing that information because it tends to make other people's lives better.
All right, that is Phil Dunlap. Thank you so much, and have a great and blessed day.
You too.